Hi guys, good evening. My name is Bhuvan. This is the Indian Express Explain class, and I welcome each one of you, those who are joining me live and those who will be watching this over the course of the next few hours up until the next class tomorrow evening. Okay, Satyabrata, good evening. I'm good. Thanks for asking. Coder, Karuna, Eldho, Bulbul, Ishu. Good evening, guys. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Meanwhile, before I get started, very quickly, if you can just hear me all right, if you can see me all right, just let me know, okay? Just let me know very quickly in the chat so that we can get started. Okay, right. So the three topics that I have for you: kidney transplants, number one. This is an article that I've picked right from the explain page of Indian Express, and more importantly, from the exam perspective, I suggest that we go beyond kidney transplants and we learn about, say, organ transplantation and say organ donation in India. Because again, there is a legal aspect to it, there is an ethical aspect to it. So we need to identify all of them. We need to identify, say, the status of organ donation in India currently, the challenges associated with it, and then obviously with the challenges, the way forward automatically follows. So that will be agenda number one. Okay, Mohan, Bulbul, good evening, guys. Indian mouse deer is our next agenda. Why? Because two zoos have gone ahead and exchanged animals. Okay, and so the Indian mouse deer is important for us. Okay, it's the smallest deer that you find in the subcontinent. So firstly, it's very cute to look at. But more importantly, from the exam perspective, you ought to know, say, what is the role of a deer in a forest, and say what exactly is the connotation of having a deer in a forest. From the ecology and environment perspective, that gives you an idea of, say, the predator-prey relationship. The prey base that exists in a forest is so important when it comes to determining the fate of the predators. Okay, so Indian mouse deer, we'll seek to understand number two. And number three, well, this was in the news recently. Supreme Court went ahead and say, well, pronounced their verdict regarding the abrogation of 370. But from that judgment came a very important recommendation by the Supreme Court. And that recommendation was that a Truth and Reconciliation Committee be set up. Okay. Now, historically, when you look at it, it's a very pertinent institution, very important institution that is being proposed by the Supreme Court. Okay. So we ought to have a look at it. What is the role of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Okay. Historically, are there any references where, say, countries have gone ahead and formed such a commission for whatever purpose it may be? So we'll identify those during the course of this discussion. Maximum 25 to 30 minutes is all I ask of you. Right? Shall we get started, guys? Okay, you can hear me all right, no? Chalo, theek hai. Let's get started. So this is where you go ahead, connect with me on my Telegram. Okay? Those who are a part of this channel will tell you that I do not spam, because I value your time more than I value mine. Yes, you have already got an information deluge in the market. You do not need to be spammed with a lot of information. Only the most pertinent, the most relevant articles, because again, when you look at it and when you consider on a daily basis, you are looking at how many articles that are published. 500,000 articles probably. But you end up reading, say what, 5, 6, maybe a very good sincere candidate might end up reading 20. But then eventually, how much of takeaway is coming out of those articles, that effort, that is very important, right? So I try to limit my interaction, give you only that what is required, and say eventually have a focus on question solving and whatever extra resources that will be of benefit to you, right? So go ahead and connect with me on my Telegram. Meanwhile, let's get started with this. Kidney transplants in India, the law, the demand, and the alleged rackets. So you have had a particular hospital in New Delhi, right? Now allegations are that it is using the kidneys of the refugees from Myanmar. Okay. And well, there are questions being raised on, say, how the kidneys are being procured. Okay. So that is beyond the discussion that we are not interested in. But we will straight away understand this and we'll look at it, say, paragraph by paragraph. Okay. Organ donations are forbidden in India when it comes to exchange for money. Here it is. It's an illegal act if there is a monetary transaction being involved. Okay. What you require is that, well, there is a particular criteria that needs to be met. Okay. For example, it can be from the pool of deceased persons donated by their relatives, right? So for example, you have these eye donation camps, right? You go ahead and pledge that after my passing away, say my eyes can be used and say for giving life, for giving vision to someone else. So that is, again, we'll understand the consent part also. But here it is, let's understand the criteria one by one. So from a pool of organs of deceased persons donated by their relatives, or from a living person, the recipient knows. Yes. So if you know someone, be it a relative, a close friend, then you can go ahead and say seek their organs if you require one, right? But then one thing that you need to know is that the close relatives, right, such as parents, siblings, children, spouse, grandparents, grandchildren, this is allowed, okay? But you require, say, the distant relatives, dur ke rishtedar, okay? Distant relatives, in-laws, long-term friends are allowed after additional scrutiny to ensure there is no financial exchange. Very, very important for you to realize this, that eventually there is a mechanism that goes ahead and ascertains whether the donation of the organ from person A to person B, if they are not in the immediate family circle, then is there some sort of monetary transaction involved? There is a scrutinizing committee, in fact, that goes ahead and seeks to verify the facts. Okay. So from living donations from close relatives involving Indians or foreigners, so you need to have documents that will establish your identity, your family tree. Okay. You need to have pictures to prove that indeed a person is my close friend, right? It just because you say so will not be taken at face by the scrutinizing committee. Okay. So a lot of scrutiny is there when it comes to organ donation in India. Now, from the exam perspective, guys, give me a second and let me add a very quick slide here. Right. From the exam perspective, what you're supposed to know, let's go ahead and understand that first. Charu, good evening. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Okay. And I hope there are no doubts so far, because what we are going to discuss now is very important. So like I told you, you're allowed to take organs from, say, your immediate family circle. Okay. Or you are allowed to take it from, say, other sources, but no financial exchange should be there. Okay. But then eventually you realize that there is a problem of consent. Okay. So how is that ascertained in India? Let's do that. So 3 types of consent should be known by you, my friends. Okay, just pay attention for 5 minutes and I'll try and simplify it for you in the easiest manner possible. Okay. So number 1 you're looking at is required consent. Okay. Number 2 in this very consent differentiation is the presumed consent. We'll understand the differences of each one by one. Okay. Required consent, presumed consent, and then the third one is informed consent. Okay. So know this, because again, there's a fair chance that you will be asked to at least know the difference if it comes to, say, a question in the mains examination. It will help. This information will obviously help you go ahead and draft a very good answer. Now, what is a required consent? Simple words, I'll try and explain it to you. Okay. Any person, say, who wishes to donate their organs and tissues. Okay. Any person who wishes to go ahead and donate their organs and tissues. Okay. Right. After their death, they have to make a pledge. So this is done after death and the pledge has to be there. Which means when they were living, they should have signed something or they should have committed something that yes, I'm going to pledge my organs for death after transplantation for saving the life of someone else. Right? So this pledge has to be done. This is required consent. Now when it comes to presumed consent, this means that unless the person has declared during their lifetime that, well, I am not willing to go ahead and donate my organs, unless they have satisfied that criteria, right, it is already understood that every person is agreeing for organ donation. Presumption, right? It comes from that very word. So which means, let's simplify it. So unless the person has committed, unless the person has said, no, I say yes. Basically, this is the meaning, right? So unless they have said, I am not going to go ahead and donate my organs, it is assumed that yes, consent is given in this case. And then you have an informed consent, which is not specific to organ or tissue donation, by the way. Okay, let's understand it very simply. This is not specific to just say organ or tissue donation. Okay. Informed consent is not specific to organ or tissue donation, but here the agreement is based on a full understanding of what will take place in the form of a medical treatment. Correct? So you have information sharing plus ability, all of that is given, right? So here is information sharing plus full understanding. Right? Now in the Indian case, what you find is, and I'm going to mark it here from a different color. Okay. In the Indian case, what you find is that required consent is mandatory. And with that, you need to have informed consent, which means the person who is so making a pledge that after my death, my such and such organ or my tissue can be harvested to give life or give new vision or whatever it be to the next person, they have to be aware of what they are committing to. Right? So this is in India's case, whereas many countries in the West have presumed consent, but this is not in India's case. Okay, in India, you need to make a pledge and only then can your organs be harvested. Okay, now when we go forward, let's look at the status of organ donation in India. More importantly, from the pre-perspective, guys, have a very good idea of, say, the types of organs that can be donated. For example, can bones be donated? Right? If you go back in, say, I'm sure you must have read in your childhood, the story of Dadhichi. Have you heard of Dadhichi? Yes, this sage who donated his bones, right, for a particular purpose. But then this is what we know the particular sage, the monk, for, right? So are you allowed to go ahead and donate your bones? Yes. In fact, this is the entire list that I've got for you. You're allowed to donate your eyes, your kidney, your heart, liver, lungs, skin, bones, intestine, pancreas, and even veins. Okay, all of that can be harvested after informed consent and required consent after you have passed away. Right? Have a very good idea of this, my friends. Now let's look at the status. So first, number one is looking at a demand-supply mismatch. As of the latest updates, you find that roughly around 3 lakh people are waiting for organs in the country. However, the donation rate is not sufficient at all. It's grossly inadequate. Okay, so there is a demand-supply mismatch, which means most people pass away waiting for an organ. Okay, number two, you're looking at slow growth in donor numbers. So roughly, if you look at it from 2014, if I haven't got my figures incorrect, so in 2014, you had roughly 6,916 donors, and in the year 2021, this has only gone up to roughly around, say, 14,000. Okay, 15,000, roughly. You see, so in a country where you have, say, 3 lakh people who are waiting for organs, to have this much of number only per year is just far too less. I'm sure you can understand that, right? Then you have low organ donation rate, right? So for example, you look at, say, Spain, the example of Spain and USA immediately comes to my mind. Okay, let me just write this down in red. So the example of Spain and United States, who through increased awareness, my friends, okay, and increased responsibility that they put on the people, thus you have around 30 to 50% of people who commit to some form of organ donation or the other. Whereas in India's case, that is not the case. Now, is it because of, say, lack of awareness? Maybe. Part one. Yes, one part of the discussion. But more importantly, lack of sufficient institutional mechanism also goes ahead and contributes to this issue. So you might have willing people with organs who might want to go ahead and donate, but may not know how. Or if they know how, there is not sufficient mechanism from the, say, institutional side to go ahead and, say, motivate me to go ahead and undertake that effort. Okay, so this is another issue. Then you're looking at regional disparities in India. Okay, for example, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Maharashtra, right? They have the highest number of deceased organ donors. The rest of the country lags behind. Okay, so let me just note down the states for you, just in case if you want to make a note of it. Although I'll be sharing this on my Telegram channel, so it shouldn't be an issue. But Telangana, okay. Then you're looking at Gujarat, Maharashtra, okay. If I'm not mistaken, Telangana, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka is there. Okay, these are the prominent states that have the highest number of deceased organ donors. Right? Then you are looking at obviously kidney transplants because it is the most sought after. out of all the organs, this is the most in demand. And thus you find that often this is also the one that is most frequently, say, illegally extracted from an individual. Why? Because the demand for this is the most, highest. Okay. Shubham, good evening. How are you? Welcome. Right. So I hope you're getting the magnitude of the problem first. Okay. It's a massive problem. So what have we done to go ahead and address it? This is very important for you to know. So let's go ahead and look at it. Okay. This organization is of importance to you. The National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization, also known as Noto. Okay. It's under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Now, what does Noto do? Okay. 3 parts. Number 1, procurement. Number 2, distribution and registry. Okay. So, from the end to end, from getting from person A to going ahead and using that particular organ in person B, the entire process is regulated by Noto. Okay. Now, why does it do that? First, you have to understand the ethical issue behind it. That when it comes to organ donation, inherently the nature of the problem is such that the rich will always be at an advantage. Because of the power backed by money, they can go ahead and say illegally seek another organ from a healthy person, or even, doesn't matter, from a poor person. Right? So to avoid that issue, Noto has framed some very stringent guidelines. So realize when we were discussing about, say, the immediate family versus close relatives, then I told you that you have a scrutinizing committee that goes ahead and ascertains, say when you claim that, okay, X person is my close friend from 25 years ago and now X wants to give me their organ for me to survive, then well, that scrutinizing committee will ask pictures from 25 years ago. They'll ask you to verify, okay, you are claiming this friend to be a 25 years old friend, prove it to us, right? Thus, Noto is the preliminary body that goes ahead and looks at this entire issue. Now, a particular rule that was passed recently, my friends, is the new organ transplantation guidelines. Very important because again, this is related to the current affairs that I'm sure you must have missed. Okay, so previously, you had the prohibited end stage organ failure patients above 65 years. Okay, here it is. The age cap has been reduced. So the 65 years age cap, now this has been removed. Okay, what do I mean by 65 years age cap being removed? All I'm saying is that age limit for the recipients has been eliminated. Okay, this is for the recipients, not the donors. Now, why has it been eliminated? Because our life expectancy is on the up. Okay, so earlier you had, say, 65 years plus who could not seek organs if they were, say, requiring one. If there was some ill health, if they wanted particular organs, no, the guidelines wouldn't allow that. Noto goes ahead and removes that cap. Why? Because our life expectancy is increasing. Okay, earlier you had this domicile request, by the way. Okay, domicile request was there, now that has been removed. In fact, the whole priority is one nation, one policy. This is the name of the program, by the way, my friends. One nation, one policy. Okay, so you go ahead and register, and you can register from any state. Not necessary that your donor will be from the same state, the recipient is from the same state. That requirement is over. Okay, it's a national registry that is now maintained by Noto. Okay, and number 3 is the registration fees that has been done away with. Okay, so many states used to have this registration fee. Imagine, you are going to donate your organ, or if you are someone who requires an organ to survive, and here you had, first you pay for the application form. So now that has been done away with. Obviously, it was an insensitive move, it had to go. Okay, so these are the new organ transplantation guidelines. And more importantly, I've given you the overview of the organ transplant problem in India. So let's go ahead. Friends, tell me very quickly. Now, I want you to help me out here. Okay, I'm just going to add a new slide and say if I had to frame a way forward for this topic. Right, if the answer required me to go ahead and say suggest way forward, what would it be? Number 1, I have identified the challenges for you. So for example, we identified together that awareness is a major issue. Okay, so can I go ahead and say increased awareness? So awareness programs need to be launched, right? Not just by, say, governmental entities, but also by private bodies. Yes, it has to be like a pan-India movement. Yes or no, my friends? Bataiye. Go ahead, give me some suggestions. Let's identify at least 5 suggestions. How will you suggest to change the organ transplant problem in India? Bataiye. Let's do this. I'll wait for your answers. Batao. Shubham, good evening. How are you? Good to see you. Huh? Can we also have, say, more awareness and training for our medical professionals? For our medicos? Why? Because I gave you the example of Spain and USA, who have registered almost 30 to 50% of organ donation rate in their country. Now, organ donation, your two stakeholders is who are who? Like, one is obviously the patient, but the other is the doctor. So yes, you go ahead and increase awareness for this issue, but then this stakeholder also needs to be sensitized. They need to be given proper training procedures so that even in conversations with their patients, they can bring this up in a subtle manner. Convince their patients to go ahead and do the right thing at the right time. Because again, organ donation is a time-specific problem, no? Right? So obviously, awareness and training for my medicos also. What else? What else can I think of? Can I have, say, community-driven events? Community-driven events. Because eventually, you want to go ahead and increase people's participation in this. More people need to sign up to go ahead and, say, donate their organs. So more community-driven events must be there. Correct? All these myths exist, no? Now certain faiths, I'm not sure how true it is, but certain faiths go ahead and say, okay, you should not donate organs. Now that myth busting also needs to be there, because eventually it's a human problem. It's not a religious problem. It's not a religion-related problem. You are saving a life, right? So probably go ahead and include my religious leaders also. They also need to be sensitized, because unless they are on board, my project will fail. Because obviously they also hold immense sway. Hey, Giri? Correct, Karuna? Absolutely good. Your ethical plus legal framework. It needs to be faster. It needs to be much more efficient. Now, think from the institutional perspective. So, you have the willingness, you want to go ahead and donate, but you do not know which hospital should I go to. Okay, what benefit do I get to serve? So, which means that institutional mechanism needs to be strengthened. Would you agree, guys? Hospital, Bulbul, you are absolutely correct. Karuna, enhance infrastructure, yes. So, which means my infrastructure needs to be strengthened. A lot more capacity building needs to be ensured. Correct? And in case, say, you have a natural disaster that has struck a particular place, large scale people have, say, passed away. Is there a system that you can go ahead and segregate, say, those who have committed to organ donation, those who have not? No. Right? So it might be insensitive to discuss, because eventually we are discussing death, and death is not a pleasant thing to discuss. For most of us, we avoid talking about death. But then you will realize that a natural disaster, any disaster, gives you the opportunity to go ahead and in a time-specific manner save the lives of countless others. So again, that's the institutional framework, the mechanism that you should keep in mind. It's not just, say, go ahead and build a hospital, okay, or go ahead and build an infirmary. That is a part of the issue. You plan for the worst, right? So use that particular, if I use the term in a pejorative manner, opportunity to go ahead and save the lives of countless others. Got it? Okay. Chalo. Now that you've understood my topics, let's go ahead and answer this for me, my friends. Proper accountability. Absolutely, Shubham. You are absolutely correct. Sahi bol rahe ho. That obviously accountability and transparency is number one in this issue. No, it's an ethical issue after all. So you are absolutely correct. Amit, good evening. Kaise ho aap? Okay, let's look at this. In this approach, every person is supposed to be agreeing for organ donation at the time of death, unless the person has decided during his or her life that he or she is not willing for organ and tissue donation. Okay, so which one is it? Required consent, informed consent, presumed consent, or none of the above? Let me know. We have discussed the 3 types of consent that exist, not just, say, in organ donation, but generally. Okay, so go ahead and let me know the answer to this very quickly. Meanwhile, before I go forward to my second topic, the interview guidance program is well and truly underway. Okay. And so for any of you who have cleared the mains this year, my best advice to you is go ahead and associate with this. It doesn't cost you a dime. But what you get is expert advice under the leadership of Shri Anil Swarup, the former secretary to the government of India. Okay. Plus, we have an entire team here that will go ahead and analyze your DAF. We have our panelists, former IAS, IPS, IRS, IFS, IFOS, all individuals with high caliber who will go ahead and give you that extra that is needed to go ahead and cross the line. Okay. So my best advice to you is go ahead and connect with this. Send your DAF to igp2023@studyiq.com, or you can head up to our website and connect with us. ठीक है, चलो. Second topic. Visakhapatnam Zoo gets new species from Warangal Zoo as part of animal exchange program. I think just yesterday's class or day before yesterday's class, we had discussed the animal exchange that took place between Padmaja Naidu Himalayan Zoological Park and a zoo in Cyprus. And in return, we got Siberian tigers, whereas we sent them red pandas. Remember this, friends. So now this is an example of, say, inter-country transaction. But here is an example of intra-country transaction, which means this has happened within the country. Okay. On one side, you have Indira Gandhi Zoological Park. On the other side, you have the Kakatiya Zoo. Okay. And they have gone ahead and exchanged. So what you find is that the IGZP, it has got two new species, mouse deer and Singa. So mouse deer now, is it a mouse or is it a deer? Okay. So let's look at it. The Indian mouse deer or spotted chevrotain is the smallest deer in India. Here it is. I mean, it's actually quite small if you look at it, huh? But it's not that small that you can fit it on your palm. Monica, Shubham, I think you guys are most likely correct. I'll have to check the options, but I think you're correct. Okay, so let's look at it. This is my Indian mouse deer. Now it is endemic to the Indian subcontinent, which means it belongs here. Okay, now Sri Lanka has a separate species called the spotted chevrotain. So ours is called as the Indian mouse deer. Okay, whereas its near brother, cousin brother, exists in Sri Lanka called the spotted chevrotain. Okay, when you look at, say, the IUCN status of this, it is the least concern. Okay, so it's not a problem for us as such, but what you find is, okay, very important, that instead of a four-chambered stomach like in other ruminants. So what are ruminants? For example, your cows, you must have seen, or your buffaloes, standing in the middle of the road on a hot day, blocking up traffic while eating something. Whereas no grass exists nearby. What is it eating exactly? So what the cows, these bovine mammals, what they do is, they go ahead, half chew the grass, keep it in a sack nearby, and then when they have enough of it, they go ahead and chew it and digest it fully later. So this process in environment, we study about it, it's called as rumination. Okay, this is the process, rumination. So it's exhibited by, say, your bovines or other herbivores. Right? So what you find is that unlike the other bovines or unlike, say, the other herbivores, my Indian mouse deer has a three-chambered stomach. Normally, these kind have four-chambered stomach. Okay, so they have chambers that allows them to store and then bring it up again and then chew it and digest it fully and then swallow it back again. Okay, but the Indian mouse deer has a three-chambered stomach, commonly found in Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats and forests of central India. So this is one that has been exchanged. But obviously, it's quite very difficult to find, by the way, in the forest. Okay, the numbers are not that high. And here is the Singa. The name gives it away. Singa means you have four of these that you're looking at, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, 4 horns. The 4-horned antelope or Singa, found in India and Nepal, once again endemic to the Indian subcontinent, belongs exactly here. Okay, they are usually diurnal and solitary by nature, and the IUCN Red List is vulnerable. So have a basic idea, even though, say, you find that least concern and vulnerable, so you might think, oh, they're not very important animals. Okay, but what you find is often the most important questions can be framed out of the least important topics. Okay, so on that note, go ahead and answer this question for me. Let's see. For those of you who thought it was an easy topic, let me know. Crocodiles, pythons, eagles, dholes, fishing cats, jackals. Which of the above may be considered to be predators of cheetal or spotted deer? Now, the common deer that we find in the jungle. So I want you to go ahead and recollect all those reels that you must have watched of, say, a deer drinking water near a particular stream, and then does a crocodile suddenly emerge from nowhere and try to eat it? Or have you seen a particular video of a python trying to eat a deer? Okay, because this is a particular question you will not find the answer to in any book. Okay, this is out of common awareness, common exposure to knowledge. So let me know your answers to this. Which of the above may be considered to be predators of cheetal, spotted deer? Your options being crocodile, python, eagle, dhole. Dhole is basically the jungle dogs, the pack of dogs, very, very ferocious. Fishing cats and jackals. Let me know your answers in the comment box, my friends. Okay, moving forward, the IAS GS Foundation P2I batch is now starting very, very soon. Okay, you can have a look at the luminaries, the immensely talented faculty that are going to be associated with this entire program. Okay, and if you want to go ahead and associate with this and learn under my tutelage, my mentorship, okay, I'm responsible for geography, I'm responsible for disaster management, English in your CSAT. Okay, go ahead, use the code BA Live when you sign up. Right, let me write it down. This is the code that you apply. More importantly, think of it as a backdoor to get into my class. Okay, so use this code BA Live, and I hope to see many of you go ahead and connect with this foundation batch starting very soon on the 22nd of December. It's a morning batch, so very beneficial for all those who probably are working professionals. Right, to the last topic of this evening. Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Okay, so the Supreme Court has established, in fact recommended, that you go ahead and establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to address all those issues that have plagued Kashmir. Okay, so what is a TRC or a Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Now, very, very important, guys. So just pay attention. Okay, it's an official mechanism which is going, the whole point of the TRC is to resolve conflicts of the past. Okay, so if you look at it, it's to go ahead and heal firstly. Okay, it is about hope. Please understand this. These are very important words when you discuss Truth and Reconciliation Commission. That it should focus on healing, which means acknowledging the mistakes that have been committed in the past. Okay, it focuses on hope, which means you go ahead and look for a more secure, stabler, brighter future. But for a more secure, stable, brighter future, first you must look back and say, yes, this was done wrong, or yes, this could have been done differently and we are sorry. Okay, so let's look at it. Acknowledgement of wrongdoings. Then you go ahead and figure out what went wrong. What was the truth? Because truth often is lost in the fog of crisis. Okay, and an area that has been a center point of many issues right since independence will have many stories that may never get the chance to emerge. Right? So a Truth and Reconciliation Commission looks to go ahead and look in the past at all of those stories, bring out those faces, those facets that have hitherto been lost. Okay. Number 3, reconciliation, which means you go ahead, figure out and settle the differences. Yes. The best part about TRC is that it allows you to bury everything once and for all. Okay. It allows you to move forward as a community, as a state, now as a union territory, in fact. Okay. And obviously heals, and it's a historical record. It's an archival value. It's a lesson for the future, that the mistakes that should not be committed, my friends. Okay. Now let's look at the examples of TRC. But before I do this, because it's very important that you realize that there exists precedents of Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But before I do this, may I please request you, my dear friends, my dear students, please do consider leaving me a like if you like this discussion. Why? I'll tell you. Because eventually, as an educator, right, as someone who would like to be with you, in front of you, in a class, you know, when it comes to the video, it is often a unidirectional interaction. I only have either your comments or your likes that communicate to me that yes, my class is following what I'm teaching, right? So go ahead, and from a student's perspective, I'm sure you can empathize with the love that an educator gets from the students is missing when it comes to, say, a video format. So do consider leaving me a like if you are enjoying this discussion, if you're learning, more importantly, something. But let's look at the examples of Truth and Reconciliation Commission now. So best example, my friends, is South Africa. So racial segregation, today we know it as apartheid. Okay, apartheid. Now, you all are aware of this term. Okay, but what happened exactly under apartheid? What was the type of discrimination or say segregation that was observed? So you had one that is known as say petty apartheid. Okay, if you can go ahead and say break down whatever happened, I can break it down into two parts. One is the petty apartheid and one is the grand apartheid or the grand state apartheid. Okay, petty apartheid, say I'm just not going to go ahead and connect with you. You are going to live separately from me. Okay, grand apartheid and economic boycott, economic segregation. Okay, denial of burial rights. All of those are grand apartheid. So this existed in both the forms. Okay, and thus you had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was chaired by Desmond Tutu. Very important figure again. Someone who has on a many number of times in fact stood up for the Palestine cause, and he calls it, in fact he is one of the few people who goes ahead and calls the state of Israel's actions as tantamount to being equal to apartheid. Okay, obviously from the examination perspective, what's important for us to know is that not every action is apartheid, because under international law, under the ICC, you have the definition of apartheid that is set up. Okay, so to say, when you extrapolate this discussion to say Israel and Palestine, right, it may not satisfy the criteria of apartheid altogether. We have discussed this in the past in this class. But Desmond Tutu this particular individual was the chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was set up after the apartheid era was over in South Africa. Once again, to heal, to look towards the future with hope. Okay, you're also looking at Canadian Truth and Reconciliation Commission. In Australia, the Aboriginal deaths, because eventually you realize that Australia was a direct byproduct of colonialism. And say the original native Australians, the Aboriginals, there was a lot of atrocities that was put forth on them. And thus, Australia also had their own TRC. Okay, Sri Lanka, after the Civil War, constituted a TRC too. And Nepal has established a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate human rights abuses that were committed during their civil war. Right? So, international precedent exists. It is known to work. Why eventually, as I'm sure you will realize, that it provides a sense of closure. It gives you an opportunity to heal, right? And thus you find that the Supreme Court's the Supreme Court's bench, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, it was Justice Kaul who made this recommendation. Okay, and thus this is probably going to be considered insofar as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. Okay, right? Go ahead, answer this for me, my friends. Which of the above are considered to be a part of apartheid? Discrimination in the use of public facilities, discrimination in social events, segregation in housing, segregation in employment opportunity. Okay, let me know your answers. Which of them are part of apartheid? Okay, and also answer this for me, please. In the context of apartheid, what were Bantustans? Okay, so let me know your answers, because I fully expect you to know this, given that this term has been in the news. For one form or the other, you will find that this has been in the news, primarily because again of the say Israel-Palestine conflict. So you have say Amnesty International or B'Tselem, which is an Israeli NGO by the way, and they have published reports saying, well, Israel's actions amount to apartheid. Israel's defenders on the other hand point out, well, that they are also victims of segregation, because again their logic, and justifiably so, is that in Jerusalem you can't find a single in the occupied areas, the so-called occupied areas, you do not find any Jews staying there. So their logic is, why don't Jews exist there? Is that not discrimination? So again, we have to go by the international definition that is proposed by the ICC when it comes to apartheid. Meanwhile, let me know what were Bantustans. Okay, right? Your test series, by the way, this is going to change tomorrow. Today is the 13th, which means this price tag stays till today itself, this evening. And tomorrow onwards, you will find an increase in this price, which is why I suggest, my friends, take your question solving seriously. go ahead and sign up for this test series program. You have full length tests, you have GS tests, CSAT, topical tests, everything that is required for you to go ahead and analyze your weak issues, address them before, say, your final examination on the 26th of May. Okay, use the code BA Live because that allows me an opportunity to be a part of your preparation. Meanwhile, you also get a huge discount on my as a gift from my side. Okay, okay, let's look at the questions of yesterday. Identify the correct statements about possible consequences of identity theft. So regarding this, by the way, I have uploaded a PDF on my channel today. On my Telegram channel, I have uploaded a PDF. Okay. Now that has all of these types of, say, malpractices that are conducted insofar as cyber security is concerned. Okay. I suggest you have a deep look at it. Meanwhile, if you had opened that PDF, you will realize that identity theft, you can go ahead and file tax refunds. Okay. You can go ahead and give false name to police during arrest. You can obtain a false driver's license and give and take loans. Right. So all of the above are true here. Okay. Please do take a look at the PDF. It's from the Ministry of Home Affairs, which means it's the most credible source. And thus I find it to be of most use to my students. Okay. The like counter, my friends, it has to increase. Do consider leaving me a like, my friends. Please, I request you. Okay. Question number 2. So phishing is with email, well known, most commonly known. Wishing is to do with telephone and smishing is to do with SMS. Okay. Wishing is to do with tele and smishing is to do with SMS. Again, these are mechanisms of cyber fraud. Okay. So the incorrectly matched here being 2 and 3, which means B. B is my correct answer here. Right. So UI program. Students of class 8 to 12 will find solutions using AI in particular fields. Okay. You will use AI and you will use it in particular fields. So which of them is not a part? Okay. Urban development, not a part. In fact, you have rural development that is there as part of the UI program. Okay. Defense is excluded. Trade and commerce is excluded. Nyay and Vidhi, as the document puts it, law and justice is a part of the UI scheme, the UI program. So the correct options here being just one, A. Okay. The Artificial Intelligence Act has been passed by whom? Very easy question. We had done a deep dive into artificial intelligence, the latest updates regarding artificial intelligence. So the AI Act, straightforward question, passed by the European Union, B being the answer here. And question number 5, an assertion reasoning question, because again, many of you have asked me for assertion reasoning questions to be included in this daily news analysis that we do. So we are going to do that. Okay. Student feedback is always welcome. So assertion. Regulation of deepfakes is of urgent importance as compared to shallow fakes. We discussed between deepfakes and shallow fakes. Deepfakes use artificial intelligence and machine learning. Okay. They are simply done manually. Okay. They are done through a simple editing software that you will have at home. Okay. And thus they need to be regulated more because the potential of misuse of deepfakes, as evident by the news, if you have been following recently, a popular actress's video, objectionable video was released and it was found out to be a deepfake, right? So deepfakes obviously are an issue of urgent regulation. So this is true. And they rely on machine learning, whereas snowflakes are done manually. Both are true and both explain each other. A is the correct option here. Okay. Right. My star individuals, as I like to call them. I'm really happy to see the continuous participation of some names here. Eldho, Extrovert, Pooja, Sonu, Gopesh, Harshit, Niraja, Monica, Shubham, Mohan, Akhil, Twinkle, Karuna, Coder, thank you, Aditya, Akshay, Rahul, Vidit and Gatso bhai. Well done. Excellent job. Okay. I don't think many of you have got many questions incorrect except probably the assertion reasoning bit. We'll do a lot more of assertion reasoning questions so that you understand how to go about solving them. Okay. Eventually, you have to figure out the cause-effect relationship when it comes to solving an assertion reasoning question. Right? So don't worry about it. I'll be including more of such questions. Meanwhile, if you have any feedback for me, my friends, please do not hesitate to leave it for me in the comment box. Okay. Or you can email to me personally. Or if you want, you can go ahead and connect with me on my Instagram channel, where I'll be more than happy to go ahead and resolve your doubt for you. Many students are already in touch with me regarding geography doubts, environment doubts, how to approach CSAT. And whenever I find time, I make sure to respond to their queries. Because eventually, having a mentor, having a doubt resolution person, if you want to go ahead and classify me as such, is very important. Doubts should not be carried forward. ठीक है? Right, I'll go ahead and wrap this up. This is my Telegram channel. You'll find the entire PDF of this lecture uploaded here. Meanwhile, I'll see you tomorrow evening, same time, 5 p.m. with the next class of Indian Express Explained. Till then, be very productive, stay safe, stay healthy. And before going, leave me a like. ठीक है? Chalo, I'll see you tomorrow evening, 5 p.m.